In regards to this deluxe, can you explain to the audience everything they need to know about it?
With this deluxe, it's so I feel like the project in its original form was what I wanted to get out. This deluxe is what I needed to be poured back into me. Kim Burrell, I warm up to her. Like I would never, baby Elijah would have never seen a world. I wouldn't have where I got to do a song with her. That to me is probably the equivalent of like most kids singing with Michael Jackson, just because Kim Burrell is really a vocal hero for me. Um, and has played such a huge part in how I sing and how I emote in my artistry, my harmonies, and then also I always say I wish I was a. I feel like mentally, creatively, I'm a product of like the '80s. I wish I was around like and my peers were Prince and Michael Jackson. So to have a song with Salt and Pepper, well, with Salt and Pepper, just I just felt like just the history and how rich they are and what they've contributed to hip hop music. And then it'd be a new Jack Swing infused beat with James Poyser on the keys. It's just kind of like that. The deluxe was for me, but I'm enjoying watching people be like, nah, this is for people like us. Like, you know what I mean? I should say the deluxe was for us. The project was from me to y'all, but this deluxe is for us. And there's a song called "Read the Room" where I've always wanted my artistry to I've always wanted to be bold enough and fearless enough to play even more. I've played more than most R&B artists, and I even hate just being confined in that because of the color of my skin. But I've played more and experimented more than most black male artists in my line of work. But Read the Room really went there where I want my artistry to grow. So it's nice that I feel like now that there's this bridge that is being built. So then as I go into there more, there sonically is continuity. I really love Read the Room for that reason in particular. Keisha and I, the record, Every Little Thing, um, I love how that worked out because she sent me that record almost 10 years ago. And Keisha sends me a lot of records. I send her a lot of records. Sometimes I'm like, I'm thinking about this song. What do you think? And if she doesn't really, I really trust her musical taste. And she just offers a different perspective because she always tells me like, Elijah, you all deep and you want to write about the walls moving and you want to write about what the leaves would say if they had lips. She's like, don't nobody care about all that. Just speak to the heart, speak to the soul. And that's what her artistry and her catalog represents. And I think that's why she likes to work with me because I also pull that super deep, uh, what does she say? Like painting with the words perspective. So I think we go together in that way. And she loved Ghostbusters so much. That was one record she called me before it came out. She was like, I want this record. I want this record. I'm like, no, that's the one record I wouldn't give away to her. And then when the record came out, she was like, I play this record like 20 times a day. And she was gonna get on Ghostbuster and we couldn't make it happen. But the when she sent me Every Little Thing years ago, that song has sat in my phone. I play it in the shower. I just loved how she sounded on it. And I couldn't believe that they hadn't put it out. And she was like, we could not get that record cleared. And I was like, hmm. So I was like, so if I could get it cleared, you know, I would like to put it on my deluxe. Because our last offering was Enough for No Love. And then another record that the label, when Def Jam was sleeping on Wonderland, she was like, I'm gonna put it on my project. I was like, what? And she put it and helped introduce me to the world that year where Rick Ross had me on Presidential, the Game had me on Freedom, and then she put me on Wonderland. So it's kind of like, again, my heroes were like, do y'all know Elijah Blake? Do y'all know Elijah Blake? And just helping present me like in Lion King where Mufasa just yeah. So the deluxe represents a lot of things that I just love, and I'm kind of like, okay, I gave y'all this, but let me have this one.
And going into that, is that why there were no features on the initial release and then the deluxe is nothing but features?
Correct. The original part, I just wanted to. I had so much to say. I didn't want anyone interrupting my thoughts. I didn't want to have to share those conversations about my mother, my father, relationships with the original body of work. It just was kind of like I wanted the audience to almost eavesdrop on what's been happening to me in the last year or two. And, because I do that. I shut down when I'm going through something. And I just was going through so many things. I've had the years prior, it was pretty smooth. I was just kind of coasting. Um, and that's probably what was wrong with that. I was just kind of coasting and just chilling. And last year, I think God just came in and said, let me just shake this up and mess up the room a little bit so you can put it together and really appreciate what you have and what you're neglecting. And I went through so many things at one point. And I was kind of like, wait, what? Why? Like, what's happening? And for it to not be in vain, I've been doing since I was a kid. I shut down and I put it all into the music. I start writing. I'm just writing through it, waking up some days just not feeling like it, not feeling creative, not feeling inspired, but just writing through it, singing through it, living through it, and then the body of work happened.
Now, there are 9 deluxe tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Why that particular amount for this one?
So originally I wanted 9 to, and I love that you asked that question. Wow. Originally I wanted the project, the first go round to only be 9 songs, just because I feel like some of the most amazing albums. I kept thinking Purple Rain. I want to do a Purple Rain. Prince is my favorite artist of all time, and then Thriller. So I wanted a short album, but in partnerships with music, and when you're doing album deals and stuff like that, the standard number is 12. So you're contractually, even though I am independent, I have partners, and it's got to make sense to everyone so that it could make dollars. And so we settled on but I wanted the deluxe to just feel like, okay, cool, this is this project, but let's add Elijah's version of Purple Rain or Thriller as an addition to it, as a battery pack to it. So I love that you peeped that it's only 9.
And are these additional tracks placed in the beginning of the track list for the deluxe or towards the end of it?
Towards the end. And that was a question we were wrestling with, but I wanted it to feel like an addition. I didn't want to tear away what the project, because I already felt like the project was beautiful as it was. I didn't want to put it in between songs. It was kind of like sequence how it should have been. So I wanted it to be an addition, a continuation of where the conversation left out, almost kind of like coming out of it. I feel like the bulk of the original project was kind of like sad, introspective, super like cerebral in that way. But then the deluxe is like happier and just how you come out of it, the victory song of it all.
And does that also explain the title, where the original release just had your name, your first name, and the period there,
Yeah,
versus the deluxe had your name and an exclamation point?
exactly. The first one was just kind of like, this is who I am, very matter of fact. I wasn't necessarily asking for approval. I just was saying, hear me. I wanted the original album required you to listen. This next project demands you to feel and be a part of it and dance together. And that's why we open with Read the Room. And even songs like Stuck in My Ways, it's a ballad, but there's a bop to it. There's a pace to it, a heartbeat to it. So it doesn't feel, and then How You Gonna, it's a party. You know what I mean? Like, you want hope, you want faith. That's what gives us, that's what keeps the world moving. Even when an election doesn't go how we want it to go, imagine, that's the beauty. Somebody said that's the beauty of democracy, is that you just got to deal with it for 4 more years, whether you like it or not. If who you wanted to get in office got in office, there's hope for the next 4 years. If who you didn't want to get in office got in there, you just got to deal with it for 4 more years and then try to do something about it moving forward. So I feel like this project symbolizes that. It's saying, okay, these are the things I couldn't control. These are the things that happened to me. This is what's happening to me. But watch how the fuck I come out of this. Watch how I get through this again because I'm built like that.
And pardon the brain fog here, but is this your first deluxe ever?
No, it's not. You almost got me. I thought it was my first deluxe. Shadows and Diamonds had a deluxe, which was my first project on Def Jam. My first actual album on Def Jam. My only album on Def Jam, actually.
So for this particular, let's zoom out all the way.
Okay.
When you create this album initially, Elijah period, did you go into this with the mind state of having a deluxe? Is a deluxe something that after you release the project, it's like, hey, let's just drop a deluxe? How does that work? The architecture of a deluxe, is that something, I guess what I'm trying to say here is thought well before in advance, or is that something that's just kind of like a spontaneous?
Spontaneous for me. I didn't think about a deluxe. Because for me, I write my own music or co-write majority, if not all, and co-produce. I co-produce so much on this project, and especially on the deluxe, and I'm having fun with that as well. But I was so picky, especially with my executive producer, Wardell Malloy. We were so picky on like what songs made it, that there were great songs that I didn't necessarily connect with as much inside of the original body of work, the space I was in, how I was feeling. And again, as you come out of these things, you start having a connection with certain records that you originally weren't sure if you wanted to put out on the original body of work. But then also, you don't stop creating. One thing I saw with Quincy Jones, he said, God puts a certain amount of songs in creators, and it's your job to get them out into the world to inspire the next thing that's happening, the next person, and they don't belong to you. So I never stop creating. Even though my project is done, if I'm feeling these songs, I feel like that's God whispering melodies in my ear, him helping me tell these stories. So I kept creating, and then you get songs like Read the Room, and the deluxe kind of shaped itself in just how you evolved as a human being, how you evolve as an artist. Yeah.
And is that your own thinking? Is that your team's thinking, the record label's thinking, hey, maybe we should do a deluxe for this?
No, that was my thinking. And me and Jason and the team. No, it's I had a lot of conversations with Jason about the deluxe, just because Stuck in My Ways was always a record he believed in, always. And I know he's up there doing his big one because that record is the first record that's outpacing. It hasn't outstreamed I Just Want It, because I Just Want It is over 100 million streams now. But on Apple Music and Spotify, I Just Want It has always been, since it came out, the number one consumed song on all the platforms. Stuck in My Ways is the first song in my career to outpace it. And Jason, I remember one time while we were working on a project, I really wanted Jasmine Sullivan on Sugar Water and Lime. And we got so close. Like, he was actually speaking to Jasmine's manager, actually, about making it happen and scheduling conflicts. And then she was about to do it, and then he passed. But I remember he told me before he got a hold of her manager, he's like, if it doesn't happen, Stuck in My Ways is the record anyway. Like, he just would always go, when I'm like, did you get in contact with Jasmine? Did she sing Sugar Water Line? Did we get that done? And he's like, no, I'm going to get in contact with her manager. He's like, but it's looking like it's going to happen. But even if it doesn't, Stuck in My Ways is the record that's going to change your career anyways. And so I know he's up there messing with it in a way, because it's just doing so much amazing things on its own.
Now, as far as the artwork is concerned for the deluxe, can you explain that concept and the correlation to the original as well?
Yeah, I can't take too much credit for that. That's my team. Again, everyone is super involved. Wardell Malloy, Shy, myself, Paul. We literally just, we didn't want to do too much to take away from Again, I just wanted the messaging to be this is an addition, elevating what we already think is beautiful. So yeah, so somewhat in a way just highlighted because I thought that the original cover was pretty well done. I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but I just love the simplicity of it. I felt like it reminded me of like a classic 80s album cover, up close, personal. You can see the emotion on my face. You look at that, you're like, okay, this guy's ready to tell the truth. And I didn't want to do too much to change it or anything. So yeah.
Now, are there any unknown facts or stories in regards to this deluxe edition that's never been publicly mentioned before? Could be in regards to creating it, recording it, or releasing it.
Yeah. This one is cemented what I've already known in my mind. But I always say Prince is like my favorite artist of all time, and then of course do that Jimi Hendrix, Lenny Kravitz, Marvin Gaye, Bono, and Michael, of course. But I realized how much Rihanna plays a part in my freedom as an artist. She's been this project this that everybody's like, is it coming out? Is it not coming out? Is it coming out? Um, Luckily, my relation with Rock Nation, I've kept a really good relationship with them, and um, in the process of her things as well. So she was working on and off on her project, and there's just a space that you have to be willing to tap into when working on Rihanna because I don't know if it's because we're both Caribbean that I understand this, but I think that she's not limited to the constructs of how American music receives black artists. So because she's Caribbean and she's looking at it in a way of like, hell, all this stuff is a plus anyway. Like these are beyond my wildest dreams in Barbados, and me being, Haitian, I'm just like, yeah, why can't I play with these drums? Why can't I go over here? Why can't I sing these melodies? So while I was working on her stuff, you got to just take all that off. You have to take all those chains off. You have to take all those restrictions off, all that bondage off, and just create. And I make my best music when I'm also working on music for Rihanna, whether she keeps it or not. So a lot of times you'll see people like, oh, I'm not working on that project no more. They're gonna say it's gonna come out, and then I'm like, I'm gonna show up every time because there's a freedom and something that it unlocks in my brain when you have to think, when you have to create with Rihanna in mind. So Read the Room actually started as an idea for Rihanna with Justin Tranter, Kareem Lomax, and myself. But soon as we started writing the song, I knew it was my record. I knew it because I literally was like, oh my God, I'm writing my life. Well, we're writing my life. And I felt an instant connection with it. But again, who's gonna miss out on a Rihanna check? Or who's gonna miss out on a Rihanna placement? So I was just as excited if it would have went to her. I would have loved to hear her perspective on it. And to my knowledge, actually, she loved the record. Um, the album just didn't end up happening. So when it didn't, I just had a simple conversation with everybody. It was like, hey guys, like I was actually like in love with this record when we first did it. I had an instant connection to it when we were writing it, when we were working on it, and I want to use it on the Deluxe. So shout out to the Deluxe for helping me spin the block on a couple of the records that I might have like missed out because I had it in my head that it was supposed to go for somebody else.
Now, speaking on that same subject matter,
Yeah.
when it comes to songwriting and things of that nature, has there been a song that you wrote for someone that you wish was yours instead? And vice versa as well. Has there been a song that you saved for yourself that could have been for someone else, and at the end, you wish you would have given it to someone instead?
No, there has never been that just because my writing process for myself is a completely different approach, a completely different experience. I come into the session um, wanting to elevate whatever someone's feeling, whatever they're going through, and help illustrate it in that way. So I don't go into a Keisha session even remotely in the mind space that I could do something for myself. I'm coming into it, Oakland. You know what I mean? There's an attitude before, as soon as I walk through those doors at Westlake or Paramount, I'm coming into it with that energy. Like I said, even with Rihanna, the closest one is Rihanna, just because I just think she has successfully done what I would like to accomplish in terms of existing outside of R&B limits. And she Anti is a screaming representation of experimenting with electronic elements, soul elements, live instrumentation, tempos, and then she'll have something when she doesn't, or even the record I've done with her, No Love Alive, where you just take it all away, upon the island. But everybody else, I just kind of come in wanting to help illustrate their words and their story. And for myself, it's more intimate. It's just usually me and the producer in the studio, and then live instruments if I choose to add it. But it's just far more intimate. I don't have like a whole crew. I actually would rather not, because there's certain things I need to get out that I just don't want interrupted.
Any other unknown facts or stories in regards to this deluxe never publicly mentioned before?
Hmm. Oh yeah, Stuck in My Ways was actually. I feel like Eric Hudson knew what he wanted, because he kept saying, I was like, I want up tempo. There were certain opportunities becoming available in the acting world for me. Coming out of the pandemic, the music industry was in a weird space, and a lot of people were like, okay, what's gonna happen with the music industry? Of course, music can never go away. I believe it's the single most important component. You can't even play sports without the national anthem, or even you look at the Super Bowl, and the biggest part of the Super Bowl, objectively, or to some people, is the halftime show. So, but there was a space where people were like, what's going to happen with the music industry? Is it going to take a while for the money to come back? So there was like a lot of pivoting in the acting world that was flourishing, and a lot of opportunities came up, for me to do acting. And one of the projects that I was heavily, diving into, I was like, oh man, I want to do the soundtrack for this. And just like, how Leah got to do the soundtrack for Romeo Must Die with Try Again. So I was having this whole moment, and that's how the conversation came up with uh with Eric Hudson and I. But now looking back, he had a trick up his sleeve, because he was like, yeah, I know you asked for up tempos, but I did something more Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell-ish. I was like, okay, like, well, if that's what you win, let's just create on it. And he was like, yeah, by the way, Seven's pulling up. I was like, okay. And she pulls up. She's like, I'm here. Eric told me to pull up. And so he kind of Quincy Jones that whole thing. But that came originally because I wanted to work on things for this movie role, this acting opportunity that, was pretty much, a go till like the, protests, and then it turned around. Then the protests and the writer strikes was happening, and everything kind of quieted down with that.
So, what's the status of that role as of this interview?
Honestly, like, nothing in LA that was being filmed around that time made it out alive. I still want to go into, film for sure. That's just been something that's been calling on me and calling on me, and but now that I'm about to go on tour, it's kind of like it's just something that's gonna have to wait again until the timing works out perfectly.
And do you want to share any information on this tour?
Mm. This tour is helping me really appreciate, even though I don't feel like I've always gotten my flowers in the music industry, in this game. It reminds me, like, damn boy, you really put up, like you showed up every time, every project, every mixtape. Like, I really can pat myself on the back and be like, you showed up. I had something to say. I said it from my perspective in a way that I feel like nobody else was saying at the time. And while I was doing the music for the tour and going back and forth with the MD, and I'm just like listening, I can hear that little boy like growing up. My melodic choices, my riffs and runs. It's so funny. I have to like really prepare myself to sing songs on my first mixtape, just because I remember being that, 18-year-old kid that just got signed and I wanted the world to know I could sing. So it was a whole bunch of high notes and a bunch of runs, and I just wanted everybody to know that I could really sing. And when I hear those songs, I'm like, okay, okay, youngin, we get it. Like you can sing, you ain't gotta. But I know I hear him in there in those records. Like I I had one chance to go to bat. I remember going to Rock Nation and running up in that office and telling Jay, like, please, people think I'm Nate Dogg because I had so many features out and no, I had no original music out. So people was like, oh, Elijah Blake reminds me of Nate, or like a young Nate Dogg. I was like, wait a minute, like I'm from Florida first and foremost. I love Nate Dogg. I love Nate G, but I'm only 18 and no, like let Nate Dogg be Nate Dogg. But it was stressing me out because I was on these huge projects with Rick Ross and The Game and Common and Keisha, but I had no original music out. So I went into Rock Nation. I was like, can I just give me the studio for a week and let me just do a mixtape? And then I do the mixtape. And then Jay tells me it's too good to be a mixtape. And I don't often cry. I barely cry at funerals. And I actually didn't even cry. I'm not gonna cap and say I cried, but the closest feeling to crying was that I just felt so defeated. Because how can you argue if somebody tells you your album, well, your mixtape is too good to be a mixtape? But I'm like, just let me put it out. That's what it's supposed to be. It's just this project. And one day, No ID, I think he felt my No ID is an artist as well. He's known to the world as a producer, but he's an artist. And I think he felt that. And he calls me in the middle of the night and he goes, you want this project to come out, don't you? You want this mixtape, BG22? I was like, yes, please. It's keeping me up at night. He was like, I'm dropping it now. And back then you could just go on that pip. Him and Don Cannon just pressed upload. And I was like, well, what is Jay gonna say? What about Rock Nation? He was like, you trusted me to when you signed your career over to help guide and lead your career, and I have to trust your instincts. And he pressed live at night, and then that was the beginning of Elijah Blake.
But as far as this tour, do you want to share any more details about this tour?
I want y'all to show up to the tour. That's what I want for this tour, because that is how artists make money and how we're able to reinvest back into the music. And again, I'm not an artist who just sits there and makes beats off of Fruity Loops and just there's an experience that needs to be had. I'm a church boy, so you're gonna really get to come into my world and really understand my artistry and why I am what I am, who I am, and how I am, and why I am, without at risk of sounding too deep, but that just is what it is. Like when you see me live, I think is when it all makes sense of all the different, the whole Gemini experience, all the different aspects of Elijah Blake happen when you see the show live.
And this sounds like a headlining tour you're alluding to?
For sure, for sure. But that's not to say that I wouldn't like to open. There are certain people I would love to open for. I don't care how many records I sell. I would always be down to open for Jasmine Sullivan. Yeah, there are certain ones I'm always, yeah, if it's the right one. But right now I'm coming into it as it's just like my show, and it could be something where it starts off as just mine and then it turns into a different leg where I'm like supporting somebody else. I would love that as well.
And pardon the brain fog here, would you be embarking on your first headlining tour here?
No. It's kind of like the standard now, but like maybe after the Neon Eon, I didn't have an agent that I felt, because I used to be with CAA, and then Kara left, and just so many moving chairs and so many moving parts, and I'm like, what happens? How does this work? Like, who is my agent? Where do I go? What do I do? And I'm just like, then I was like, how did I let myself get here? It's very Deborah Cox. How did you get here? Then somebody from my team, I think it was Shy, it was just like, okay, so you create your own tour. You have the fans. He was like, if the people are gonna show up, there are venues that will open themselves up to you, because they'll make money from the bar and everything else that comes with it. So we literally routed a city winery headlining tour with them and other dates in between and spots in between that didn't have a city winery. I think they have more now, and sold out every venue. And um, that was very interesting to me because in this game of numbers and streams and followers and all this stuff, you start to feel like, okay, if I'm not like streaming, and I hate to just I'm just using somebody who just kind of like kills it in that world. So no knocks it, but like in the world of where you have Ice Spices who just do like insane numbers. Sometimes you're just kind of like, well, dang, like, is anybody gonna show up? Like if I announce it? So to like sell out every venue was just kind of like a good reminder. Like it's not all like bad. Like there, you might not have everyone's attention, but the people whose attention you do have, they don't mind spending money to show up and come see you. And they were flying in from France and other places, and that was just so beautiful to me. That kept me going and led me into this project.
And what was the name of that tour?
It was the Neon Eon tour.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, just double checking on that.
Yeah.
What about this upcoming headlining tour? Is there a name yet that you'd like to share?
You know what? I just kind of thought about it. Maybe it's Elijah question mark. Like the original album is Elijah with the period, then the deluxe is Elijah with the exclamation point, and then this is like Elijah. I feel like that's the tour. Like, yeah, I just came up with it just now.
All right, a few more questions in regards to the deluxe here.
Okay.
What's personally your favorite song on it?
And I'm about to answer it the way that I hate how people answer it because it's like you have a favorite. I hate when people say, oh, I have 6 best friends. And I'm like, well, then you have no best friends because who is the one? Like, my personal favorite. It really depends on the day. Like when we were making the deluxe, this is the deluxe, right? Not the album. The deluxe, when we were making the deluxe, I couldn't stop playing How You Gonna. I listened to that on a flight. I had a flight from LA to New York, and anybody who knows that flight knows that it's like brutal. I listened to that the whole flight there. So like maybe 5.5 hours of listening to one song is pretty, like you have to love it. So that was that one, but now, then Every Little Thing with Keisha went back to being my favorite, but only because I feel like I played Stuck in My Ways ad nauseum before it came out. But now I found myself playing Read the Room all the time in the gym. That's like my gym record right now, Read the Room. But then something happens when I hear your name comes on when I'm in the car, and then I'll just like replay it because I'll just think about Jason. I think that record is like in a different part of my brain now because it just has so much weight. Sometimes I can't listen to it. It probably would be even higher up there if I could listen to it, but I have to like brace myself. And then the visual, I couldn't even be a part of like the editing of it. Like I literally told the people I trust and love, just like, please, you know me well enough to just like the parts that you think I wouldn't want in there, but I couldn't bring myself to the editing of that visual and just reliving that. But yeah, I don't have a favorite. I hate, they're all my babies. I hate when people say that, but I'm grateful. Maybe I couldn't understand it prior because I didn't have a project like this. But yeah, I don't have a favorite.
All right, well, let's switch up the question a little bit then.
Yeah.
What's your most honest song on this deluxe?
My most honest song. Dang, these are good questions. Like I don't never get stumbled. Like I was.
From beginning to end, what's your most honest?
It might be Battlefield with Kim Burrell, just because it reminds me that there's something bigger with all of this. It's not just about music. It's not just about singing. It's not just about the awards, the streams. It's putting accomplishing something here in this life that will make someone else not give up, that will make somebody else be hopeful because you did it, because you survived, because you got up and did the unthinkable and beat the odds. So it's Battlefield for me.
And finally, can you give the audience 5 reasons to listen to this deluxe?
Yeah, 5 reasons to listen to this deluxe are: you're going to go on a sonic experience that I think that is singular in the space of R&B and music today. Um, I see conversations all the time about like, I want R&B like this, where you're gonna get bridges. I made sure I put bridges on the project. I made sure I did complete the big notes at the end of the song. Like, I'm intentionally doing the big notes and I'm holding them till my head explodes just because those are the things that made me fall in love with music. Also, I'm a huge duet fan. Like, I love, there's nothing better than like a male timbre um, hugging or being hugged by a female voice, and then them just dancing in my headphones and in my ear. And that's happening a lot on this project. I'm a student of, the Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrells, and um, Beyonce and Luther Vandross, The Closer I Get to You, and Mariah Carey and Luther Endless Love, and Kiki Wyatt and Avant. All those things are happening on this project. Bridges, ad libs. I'm a church boy, so you're gonna get the harmonies, you're gonna get the riffs and runs and the acrobats, and just the live instrumentation, the tempos, the time signature changes out for the musicians and the purists out there. Like, you'll hear those things happening. So and then if you're like an audio geek, I feel like Jeff is one of the greatest to ever do it. He also mixed Channel Orange for Frank and has a Grammy for that. But he mixed the project. But then also Jim Caruana, who mixed a lot of the early Beyonce stuff, he mixed Battlefield as well. John Marie, who is a legend, he mixed Michael Jackson, but also did some of the new Leon Thomas stuff. So there's a lot of cool things happening, but still intentional, and the way we're presenting this body of work and just trying to widen the scope of what a Black artist can represent, or how he can present in this day and age and culture, and just the disruption of the project. I'm excited about it. I love the way we packaged it. We did a vinyl, it's see-through. I'm paying attention to all the things that made me fall in love, and I have a team that's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So, I might not ever get this opportunity again, but I feel like we were checking off all the boxes of like music nostalgia.
And where can those watching, maybe tuning in for the first time, getting to know you, find that vinyl?
The vinyl is on my website, ElijahBlake.com. I made it real simple for y'all because I know everybody's attention span is super short now with social media.
Now, just want to tie up some loose ends on some things you said during this conversation. You mentioned God in this.
Yeah.
You also mentioned you were a church boy, things of that nature. But at this point in your life, do you follow religion by any chance?
What a great question. I think when I was growing up, I was super religious, but I think religion sort of becomes this thing that if you don't find your own space in it and find your own relationship with the God that you're praying to, the God that you're speaking to, that's leading you, then you kind of then religion is all you have. Wow, that kind of just hit me in a way. But now I would say I'm more so spiritual because I have a different relationship with God than I was taught that I was only able to have as a child. I laugh with him. He's not as like strict as the Bible led me to believe when I was a child, and almost like, if you do this, you're damned to hell. And I'm not knocking that people believe it in that way, but for me, there's just room for error, room for love, room for growth, room for forgiveness. So I would say I'm more so spiritual now.
And when do you make that turning point in your life from maybe following a religion thoroughly to this change into spiritualness?
For me, the transition from religious to spirituality happened where certain mistakes I made in life, I just was like, okay, well, this is it. The Bible told me that if I did this, I'm going to hell, and He's leaving me. And I just still felt God's arm around me. I still felt His love around me, and I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not completely out of the question. And then I'll do another mistake, and I'm like, all right, for sure. The God I read about in the Ten Commandments is through with me. He's sick of me. And He was still, I'm like, oh, you still here, God? And I'll just have certain conversations. He's like, you, nah, nigga, you tried it. Like, you playing. So as him and I became more uh, of a unit together, I think that now it's more spiritual. But I still appreciate everything that I've learned through religion and all the gifts that I've gotten through that. I thank God for religion because imagine if there was like no standard of how to be a good person. Like we're already screwed, but like we'd be super screwed if there was like no hope.
And just for context, what religion were you raised under growing up?
Every single religion. I had an aunt who would have dreams that we would all burn in hell if we didn't convert, and like she done took us through the ringer. So I remember growing up, we started off as like Catholic, then we didn't, as Caribbean kids, like you don't get to ask your. I watched certain the New Age or like the American way. Again, like I'm from uh practically a third world country, I guess. Like if you think about the island where Haiti and Dominican Republic is, like, but it's just very traditional. So you don't have a right as a child to be like, Mom, I want to be this, or I want to be an atheist, or I want to be. You can't. Like you'll get knocked upside your head. So for me, I would wake up one day we're going to a Catholic church, and then 2 Sundays later we're going to a Baptist church, and then you're just like, all right, I guess I'm Baptist now. And then my aunt had a dream and said that we were all gonna like burn in eternal damnation if we didn't become 7-day Adventists, and then we were 7-day Adventists. And then my stepfather came into my life, and non-denominational. I really loved and enjoyed that. There was less judgment for me, and it was more show up as you are. Because sometimes I didn't want to feel like going to church if my pants weren't, if I didn't have the right pants, or if my shoes weren't shiny. And certain churches growing up were just not fun for me. But non-denomination was come as you are. And they sung, and I love praise and worship, and they're very praise and worship based. So yeah.
And this aunt that you're referencing was on the mother's side of your family or father's side?
The mother side. Yeah.